Okay, so in this video, what we're going to talk about is the difference between the 2J intercooler and actually the stock intercooler. And if you look here, if you want to zoom in, we've got them both kind of lined up for you. We've got the 2J one, and then of course we've got the stock one out of the B17, which is really the same size as the Jukes, whether it's the version 1 or version 2 engines, they're all basically the same size. So essentially, you go ahead and keep it scrolled on there. If you look at them, the stock intercooler itself is 11 inches wide by 7 3/8 tall, and it's just about like 3 1/4 inch thick or so. And then the 2J one we've got is 20 inches wide by 11 inches tall, and then we kept it right at about 3 inches thick. And of course, we've added the crossover pipe that's here, and of course the pipe that's along the side to make sure that we match up to the stock piping and everything. We want to keep the piping as short as possible, obviously. Now, doing it this way, we're left with the surface area here is about 280 square inches of surface area versus 626 inches of surface area between the two. Seems like a lot, but this is really only 126% larger than this intercooler. Even though it looks vastly different, it really isn't. Like I said, it's just slightly over 100% larger than this, which is really what we were going for, and we wanted to make sure that we wouldn't have that much difference. You go ahead and step back. Difference in the way that the car obviously builds boost. Of course, we know that these motors, the V2 engines, they have a slightly smaller turbo, so we were always concerned to make sure that the way the car builds boost is still the same versus with stock intercooler versus our intercooler. And I know some people have come out and said that our intercooler is way too big. You know, it's not gonna, you're gonna lose a lot of boost pressure. It's gonna be laggy, stuff like that. We're gonna prove based on our dynos that that's wrong. It's actually very consistent and very similar to the stock intercooler. Now, there's also some discussion about the Mishimoto intercooler. We've tested those on the Jukes. Those Mishimoto intercoolers, very, very small. And usually within the 4th run or 5th run on the dyno, even with our fans on in the summertime, now in here it's really about 90 degrees, 80, 90 degrees, which is really what it's going to be outside when you're driving the car. The car loses a tremendous amount of torque once it sees those ambient intake air temperatures start to rise, right? The ECU is smart enough. I don't care if you've got Ecutech, you got uprev, it really doesn't matter. The ECU is going to pull back the timing, and you're going to lose power if you run a consistently small intercooler. The stock one or the Mishimoto one, it doesn't matter. It's not going to make that much of a difference. You need something significantly bigger that's going to cool that intake charge and help keep it nice and cool, which is why we created the one for the B17. So come over here. I'll actually show you. We've done several dyno runs, and what we've got is I've got the conditions displayed on the screen. We did it on February 2nd. So in here it was like 50 degrees, humidity was pretty low, and we're going to look at that compared to what we did is we swapped everything back to stock. When I say everything, I'm talking about the intercooler itself and the piping. We went back to stock because some people said our piping was too big, our intercooler was too big, stuff like that. So if we scroll down to our OEM intercooler here, we'll click on it, and then you can see your curve doesn't really change much at all. Very, very slightly up top. I mean, we're talking like you wouldn't even really know the difference there. But here down where the RPMs are low and the turbo itself is actually spooling, it really is like nearly like 1 for 1. There's no degrading of the boost pressure with that size intercooler, and there's certainly no difference in the way that the car drives. Now, what's going to be the biggest change is you can hammer this car like back to back runs, whether you're on the track or you're out on the street or whatever it is. And that power that the car is delivering is always going to be consistent with a bigger intercooler. And that's why it's so important that you upgrade it and run something that's going to actually keep those intake air temp levels nice and cool. That way you're not detonating the way the computer's not pulling that timing back. All right, so I hope this helps everybody, and it kind of explains sort of what we did and all of our testing. Thank you.